J'espère que tout le monde va bien.
Pas les filles.
C'est ça qui est important.
Okay, so we are 6:30. On est 6h30. Bienvenue à notre réunion conseil. Welcome to our council meeting. We respectfully acknowledge that we are gathered on the homelands of the Anishinaabe people, on the traditional territory of the Nipissing, Tamagami, Dokis, and First Nations, covered by Robinson Treaty. We honor and recognize their historic connection to the land and value their significant contribution in shaping and strengthening our communities. We are grateful to be gathered here today. Nous soulignons respectueusement que nous sommes réunis sur le territoire désigné dans le traité Robinson-Huron, territoire traditionnel du peuple Anishinaabe et particulièrement des Premières Nations, Nipissing, Tamagami et Dokis. Nous honorons leur lien historique avec cet endroit et nous apprécions leur contribution significative à nos communautés. Nous sommes reconnaissants d'être réunis ici aujourd'hui. Are there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Aucune déclaration d'intérêt pécuniaire ou de conflit d'intérêt?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Conseiller Dan?
I'd like to make a comment, please. I wish to remove my notice of motion 9.1, as I think I made my point.
Duly noted, removed. I also want to take the opportunity to identify a conflict of interest as I identified at the prior meeting, July 12th, on the agenda this evening under 10.8, noise bylaw exemption, since I am requesting for September 4th to host an outdoor wedding. I will provide both documents to our clerk so it could be listed on the registry.
What is it, one or two conflicts?
I declared a conflict on July 12th and declaring a new conflict today. Sorry. Okay, is there a mover and a seconder to approve the addendum? The addendum, we have 4 items, 1 to proceeding closed, and we have 3 items, 1 for closed and 2 for planning. So mover, Conseiller Yvon, seconder, Conseiller Norm.
It is moved by Councillor Jahane and seconded by Councillor Roberge. It resolved that the addendum for the meeting of council held on August 9th, 2022 be approved as presented.
Any objections? Aucune objection? None carried. Is there a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda? Conseiller Leo, Conseiller Chris, and it would be an amended agenda since the notice of motion that has been carried over since the month of February has been removed by Councillor Dan.
It is moved by Councillor Mallette and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Be it resolved that the agenda for the meeting of council held on August 9th, 2022 be approved as amended.
Any objections? Aucune objection? None carried. Adopté. On procède avec délégation et pétition, delegation and petition. We have 2 presentations this evening. The first presentation on the agenda is the 2021 municipal financial statements. And we have amongst us 2 guests from Baker Tilly, Monsieur Dan Nolad, and we also had one of your colleagues, Jess Dion, as well. So without further delay, I'll pass it over to both of you to provide us with an overview of the 2021 audited financial statements of the municipality.
Thank you, Madame Mayoress. Pleasure to meet with you this evening, and I brought my colleague Jessica Dion. She's been involved in the audit for a number of years. You're probably familiar with her. So we're going to do a tag team presentation, if that's ever, is that okay for everybody? Whereas I'm going to speak to you about the analytical review on the statements, and then Jessica will take over and look at our comparative analysis, because we like to compare things to other municipalities to see how you're faring, which we've been doing for a number of years now. So if that's okay, I'm going to proceed that way. Okay?
Okay,
And
and
Madame
may I-
Lamette,
can I just, s'il y a des questions au fur et à mesure, est-ce que tu veux que les membres du conseil attendent après la présentation ou si c'est...
mais je t'ai pas mentionné ça, Madame la mairesse. Moi, je dis qu'on continue la même façon qu'on avait fait dans les années récemment, là, ou s'ils ont des questions, moi, qui n'hésitent pas de les poser pendant notre présentation. Cette façon-là, on va pas perdre le fil de la discussion qu'on va avoir. Puis je pense que ça va être plus propice pour tout le monde. So, moi, je suggère de procéder cette façon-là, si c'est correct avec vous autres.
Okay, I believe that there's no objection and that everyone is comfortable with that.
Okay. So
We have prepared a presentation to assist in presenting the financial information. I believe the treasurer was going to share the report, or the clerk.
Alyssa,
Yeah, so the council has received the audit findings and the draft financial statement. The report that you shared today, Jess, has not gone out to council, but I can share with council after this evening, but it didn't go to,
Are you
our
able
addendum is
to-
already gone.
Yeah, sorry,
are you able to put
project
it up though?
Absolutely, yep.
Okay, just
Okay,
this is
if you
it's a report to help go through the financial statements. I think from a visual perspective, I find it's been well received. And if you would like a copy of the report, management could most definitely provide it to you after. This is just a tool that we use to present our financial statements. And Dan, I'll let you take over now.
Thank you, Jess. So Alyssa, if you can put up the comparative analysis for us.
Mel, I do need you to give me permission.
Mel?
You're on mute, Mel.
Should be good.
There we go. Everybody can see that?
Yes,
Okay, so this is our comparative analysis. Understand that through our comparative analysis, we're going to show you comparison from prior years. Understand that the financial information we're presenting it might be in a different format, but it's exactly like your financial statements that you were all provided a copy of the draft. So if ever you want to refer back to the financial statements, this is a complete reproduction of the numbers and what we have, or an abridged version of what we have in the financial statements. All right. So Alyssa, can we move on to the next slide? Now we have a table of contents, which we never had before, just to help you understand our presentation a little bit better. I'm going to go through the independent auditor's report. I'm going to go through the statement of financial position, statement of operations, and statement of operations expenses. Then I'm going to turn things over to Jessica for the budget reconciliation and the reserve analysis. And then we're going to jump into your benchmarking, which we usually prepare for you every year. And I'm going to get Jessica to present that for you if everybody's okay with that. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Alyssa, there we go. So this is an abridged version of what the auditor's report looks like with respect to your financial statements. We've only highlighted the most important two paragraphs that we feel are important to bring to the attention of council. And the first one is that it says what we did, which is prepare audited consolidated financial statements for the corporation of the municipality of West Nipissing, which comprise consolidated statement of financial position and consolidated statements of operation, accumulated surplus, cash flows, and change in net debt. So there's no changes in these financial statements that we presented in the past. The only important thing I wanted you to turn your attention to is our opinion paragraph, because don't forget, our auditor's report is about 3 pages long. It goes through council's responsibilities, management's responsibilities, and the auditor's responsibilities. And what we're happy to say is that we're providing you with a unqualified auditor's report. So what it means is that the statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the corporation as at December 31st, 2021. So there has been no change to that auditor's report, with the exception of once council has ratified the draft financial statements, we're going to date these statements the date of August 9th, which is today. Okay? Is that clear? Okay.
Yes.
Can Alyssa, can I ask you to, there we go. So this is the statement of financial position. Understand that this is exactly a reproduction of what we have on the financial statements. It's just providing a little bit of explanations of why we had differences from the prior year to this year, especially with your assets and liabilities. So if you look right now, at the end of 2021, your cash situation was about 16,842,000. That compares to 12 million the prior year. The reason for the increase in your cash flow, or your cash and cash equivalents, is because in the year there was new debt issued, specifically for financing the police station construction. And basically in the prior year, a lot of that construction was paid through just current operations until it was complete and we can issue a debt. So that's why your cash is higher this year than last. With regards to your taxes receivable, you're improving every year. And this has been an area that's been very good for the municipality. And your accounts receivable is relatively comparable to the prior year. So there was really nothing that stood out in those two areas to provide to you of why those fluctuations are, but they're really not material. And we're happy with the balances. With this other amount, which is called other assets, the biggest difference is you see it's increased significantly from the prior year. It's basically power generation is consolidated in these numbers. And power generation pays what we call payments in lieu of taxes. Essentially, they're the same thing as corporate taxes for an enterprise. And last year, we had a big amount owing as a result of a higher level of income. This year, it was the reverse. We paid in too much installments during the year, and we're expecting a big receivable. So that's the reason why other assets have increased significantly from the prior year. Okay? But it's just a timing issue, and it's related to your payments in lieu of taxes. With regards to accounts payable and accrued liabilities, we have a decrease of 1.2 million. But that's comprised of two different things. In the prior year's number, we had an amount owing to the school boards of approximately $1.6 million. And this year, we only have the last quarter owing. So as a result, there's a major decrease. And the reason we had such a large payable for the school boards in the prior years, as a result of COVID, you were allowed to defer some of your payments. So that was why we had a big payable at the end of the year. And also, the Chateau has a payable owing to the ministry as a result of, like not being able to spend all the dollars they received in grants during the year. And that amounted to about 425,000. So the net is approximately 1.2 million. So that explains that increase. With regards to deferred revenue other, very comparable. Your deferred revenues obligatory reserves are those that are required to be used for specific purposes. And the reason you have an increase is because you received a top up of gas tax funds in the year, which explains why you have such a large increase in your deferred revenues. It's mostly related to the gas tax. With regards to your municipal debt, we did get new debt in the year of about 8.5 million because it was converted because of the construction of the police station. And of course, that 8.5 million was offset by repayments on long-term debt during the year of 3.3 million. So basically, your municipal debt position has increased by about 5 million, but it's a combination of new debt and repayment in the year. Okay? Now, with regards to your employee future benefits, this is wholly related to power generation and the defined benefit plan that they orchestrate and administer. As you're aware, we have an actuarial evaluation approximately every 3 years. And every year it's updated, but we have a full evaluation done in the year, which we had in the current year. And what's happened was your deficit in the pension plan has increased in the year. And as a result, we had an actuarial adjustment to the costs of the pension plan that we encountered about 3 years ago. Okay? So if you recall, some of you, 6 years ago, we had the same issue. We had such a large adjustment that was brought up. So the amount was similar to what it was about the last actuarial valuation. So it's pretty comparable. So basically that 342 is related to that actuarial adjustment for what you're owing on this pension plan. With respect to your landfill closure and post-closure costs, they've significantly increased because your inflation rate has increased, your cost of borrowing has increased, and as a result, what we try to do is this is related to closure and post-closure costs of your landfill site, okay? And what we try to do is measure the total cost, and then we net present value that in today's dollars to give you exactly what the actual liability really is. So you've got an increase, but it's mostly due to additional costs related to affecting your net present value because your borrowing costs are increased. And inflation rates are caught into our discount rate when we look at that. So at an end result, your landfill closure and post-closure costs have increased. Now, don't forget, there's a lot of judgment in these numbers, and we're relying on experts, engineers to tell us what we have. So basically, this could be a number that might have serious fluctuations in the future as a result of that. Any questions with regards to assets and financial assets and liabilities? Clear as mud, eh, folks?
There's Conseil Leo.
Leo,
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. With the landfill, like the estimated remaining capacity, you have all numbers for how many years for all of them except the Sturgeon Falls. Why is that?
pardon?
There's estimated remaining life of all the fill sites, but Sturgeon Falls has no numbers.
Yeah, the issue related to that, Leo, and Alyssa, jump in if I'm saying this, I'm explaining this wrong. What happens is that your landfill site, specifically right now, according to the Ministry of the Environment, you're at the maximum, okay? But we made there was agreements with MOE in the past that you have another site that you'll be able to transfer to that. So basically, it's like a misnomer. You know what I mean? Yeah, your existing site is at capacity, but you were able to develop that site for expanded usage, and that hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
So that's why it's zero. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Nice
Okay.
explanation. Thank you.
Alyssa, I'm sure. I hope that was not an inaccurate explanation.
No, and the only thing that I'll kind of clarify is when Mr. Longlad says site, he doesn't mean like a completely different location. At our existing site, we have what we call cells, and we're approved for a number of cells, but our one cell is at end of life. And as we open the next cell, then as Mr. Longlad said, these numbers have got some variables, because as soon as we open that next cell, then suddenly we've got a much longer lifespan, and all these numbers sort of change again with it. The same applies to Werner, the same. We have more cells approved, and just as we open the cells, you'll see that lifespan come in.
Okay, thank you so much for the explanation.
And just on that subject matter, when we close a cell and open another cell, does the closure liability applies at that moment, or is it when it's a permanent closure of the actual landfill site?
So we're reading it as when the whole site closes, but what will happen in actuality is that when we close a cell, we're going to start doing all that maintenance on that cell, and we're going to do all that maintenance, and you'll see that kind of maintenance going on through the year. But what we look at as far as the numbers that we're going to work with each year, when I work with the auditors as far as what the projected numbers are, it looks at end of life for things. Yeah.
So there's going to be some expenditure, some cost involved, close the cell, move on to another cell. Okay. And on the subject matter of landfill site, I noticed that it identified Budgeto. Would that be the Muskasong landfill site?
Yes.
Okay.
I would have to believe so.
And
If I know my geography well, Madame la Mairesse. Go ahead there, Jessica.
sorry, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but some of these, and speaking with the treasurer and the landfill Jason, some of your landfills like are so like your smaller rural landfills have such a life capacity, like it just inflates your liability. Like, so it really is an estimate, right? Like if there was clear boundary lines, or the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change came and said, like, this is your maximum capacity, it would give a little more certainty to the liability. Right now we're going with, I believe, in a remaining capacity is 16,000 and 14,000 respectively. It's going to last you, like, my God, we'll all be, it's our great grandchildren who will be closing these landfills, so it does also skew your liability. Like, it's when you're projecting so far out, right? Like, it's
Thank you, Jess. Does that answer your question, everyone? Good.
Guys,
Elisa, could you put up the statement of operations for me, please? Brilliant. So if you can go to the next page, brilliant. Now, this is your statement of operations, everyone. This is what your financial statements look like, okay? But what we're doing is we're making comparisons to actual and budget but mostly over with budget, because budget is your guideline. So if we look first of all at net taxation revenue, like you're right on budget here. And we really don't want to have any, we don't really have any comments with regards to that. When it comes to user charges, we have an increase of about $422 from budget. And it's mostly as a result of environmental services. Tipping fees were much higher this year, and an increase in contaminated soil and recycling sales. So I'll just point out that tipping fees is not surprising that it's gone up, because as you're aware, we were in the pandemic and a lot of people did a lot of home renovations and stuff like this. So we're seeing that right through most of the municipalities. And contaminated soil and recycling sales vary from one year to the year. Very difficult to budget for, because you never know if you're going to get contaminated soil issues or not, and you're going to bring it in, because it does bring a great revenue. So from that perspective, user charges were up mostly because of those two things. Grants and transfers, you have an increase from budget, and it's mostly related to the Chateau. The Chateau, as was the case in most healthcare enterprises, received significant grants for COVID-related expenditures, and these were not budgeted. They weren't expected. So you'll see in the expenditure side, you're going to have an overage of expenditures too, because they coincide with that increase in funding. Okay. And with regards to your grants from the federal government, pretty much comparable. And on the other, the bulk of the increase from budget is related to penalties and interest on taxes. So basically, that explains most of your revenue. Okay. And so respect to general government, your expenditures were down from budget, and there was nothing really to note that would identify the decrease from the budget. But the COVID-related expenses were budgeted for this department and are comparable to the prior year. So we really don't have anything to identify why it was below budget, but it's nothing serious to note. With respect to protection services, you're about, you're down by $706,000 from budget. One of the main reasons is that you have $326,000 less than budget due to the fact that the debenture was only made late in the year. And also on the fire side, the fire department was not as busy due to less usage because of COVID, and they didn't do as much facility management as they originally expected to do. So that explains your decrease from budget for protection services. For transportation services, the bulk of it, which is approximately $2 million, represents capital budget projects that were budgeted, but were never completed. Okay, for about $2 million, which explains that line item. With regards to the environmental services, again, we spoke about power generation and the increase in the actuarial adjustment for the pension plan, and that's the bulk of what that increase is. With regards to health services, very comparable to the levy. Social and family services, you have an increase from budget because Oshato had COVID-related expenses that were not budgeted, but they were matched to the revenue that wasn't budgeted above that I spoke to. Okay? And with regards to recreational and cultural services, you're down from budget by about $863,000. But part of it was because you had capital projects of approximately $629K that were not completed but budgeted for. Okay? And don't forget, the facilities closed due to COVID in the early part of 2021. That really affected operations. Okay? So that pretty much explains why your recreation and culture services were down from budget. And last but not least, planning and development is down, mostly because you had special projects in the prior year that occurred this year, which were related to housing development strategy and the Weyerhaeuser land feasibility study that was incurred in the prior year. So therefore, your budget, your actual expenditures are below budget. So as a result, your annual surplus this year, which Jessica will discuss after I'm done, will explain the reconciliation of what you talk about every day about your budget and how we convert everything to PSAB to make you understand. With regards to government grants and transfers, which are mostly related to capital, are pretty much comparable to this year. Your grants and transfers from the federal government are way below budget because your planned capital projects were not all completed. And also you had budgeted for gas tax to be used and you didn't use it. Because remember I told you that your deferred revenues for gas tax are high. So those are available to spend in the next coming year. Okay?
On that note, Dan.
Yeah.
I just want to seek clarification from our Director of Corporate Services. The deferral of the gas taxes in 2021, I believe that we got double the amount of gas tax, and there was a capital project for a bridge replacement at Woolsey Bay, and half of the gas tax was used for that this year. Would that be correct?
That'd be correct. But if you look at the note to the financial statements, Jessica, what note is that for the obligatory reserve? Deferred
It's note
revenue.
8, but I believe the Madam Mayor is asking about the gas tax funds being carried forward to the current year.
But I'm saying that note shows you what the carry forward is for the coming year. Right?
Yeah, that's right. But then just
because
as
it's unspent in the year, you might have spent it in 2022, but we're going to report on that next year.
That's right.
Okay. All right. Is that clear?
Mm-hmm.
As you noticed, I brought my sidekick Jessica because she's a brilliant girl and she's helping me out here. Okay.
Can I just mention it because I don't want us to get on our high horse and think that we have all that gas tax money to spend right now when most of that money has already been spent in 2022.
Well, understand
Absolutely.
here, we're presenting you December 31st, 2021 here. You know what I mean? The municipality is a living, breathing entity that, you know, things change. So you're right, Madame Merida.
But as your auditor, I can attest that management provides us with details of the gas tax, what was received and how it's spent. And I can tell you that there was a plan, like the gas tax is earmarked towards specific projects. If the projects are carried forward, then the gas tax got carried forward as well. So all these gas tax funds were earmarked.
Thank you. All right. So I'm gonna, now that I've did my spiel and you guys have listened to me so many years, I think we're gonna have Jessica now speak to you to make it more
Actually,
interesting.
Dan, you have one more slide to present.
And which one's that?
The statement of operations, the expenditures by
Oh, yes.
segment,
Yes.
by function.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Now, this statement of operations, these expenses are part of a schedule that are part of the financial statements. Because what we try to do, we prepare the financial statements on department areas. So general government, like protection to persons and transportation and stuff. But what we also provide you is the details of where you spent your money with regards to salaries, wages, employee benefits, your materials and contracted services, along with rents and financial expenses, transfers to other governments or public entities, which is mostly your levies like DSAV, like you have the health unit, etc. And you have your amortization, which is the amortization of the capital assets, and you have interest on municipal debt. Okay. And I can tell you that if we remove your budgeted capital projects that you didn't complete, you know what I mean? You're right on almost to budget. And when you think about a budget of 56 million, and if I remove the 3.7 million related to your budgeted capital projects that weren't completed, you're in good stead. Okay? So expenses are according to budget and comparable to the prior year. And if you look at your expenditures actual to 220, you know what I mean? They're reasonably comparable. Okay? And on the salary and benefits side, the reason you're over budget is, again, the actuarial analysis of your pension plan for PowerGen. That was not expected and unknown. So when you look at all that, you had a pretty good year compared to budget, and kudos to both council and management. Okay. Now, am I done, Jessica, or do you want me to continue?
Oh, you're doing such a great job, Dan. If we could go to the
Thank
next
you.
slide.
I'm going to turn this over to Jessica now, and you're in capable hands again. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, folks. So I'm going to take you through the budget reconciliation. So on your financial statements, you'll notice that there was a budgeted deficit of $2,116,022. However, as a municipality, you budget to finish at zero. So there are some items that we adjust. We adjust your budget, your municipal budget, to get to so that your budget's in accordance with the accounting standards. So we remove the net proceeds. So that's your debt issued less debt paid, which was 3.5 million. The acquisition of tangible capital assets. So your assets are budgeted as expenses in the current year of 9.9 million, almost 10 million. We took out your amortization, 7.2 million. And you also this year budgeted to withdraw $1.2 million from reserves. Now this note, actually, if we go to the next, so this is how we went from your zero budget to the budget that we're presenting in the financial statements. Keep in mind, so I just want you to keep this number in mind. You budgeted to withdraw 1.2 million from reserves. If we go to the next slide, this is your reserves analysis. Now, a full version of this note can be found on page 18 of your financial statements, or note 13 of your financial statements. So the accumulated surplus is sliced and diced into various items, invested in capital assets, a general surplus, your boards, and unfunded liabilities. I think what's probably of most interest to you is the reserves. So I had mentioned that you budgeted to take out 1.2 million of reserves. You actually added $1,843,856. So your reserves increased by $1,843,856. $882,000 this year. So a large reason for the increase in reserves, as Dan mentioned throughout his presentation, is there were capital projects that were budgeted to take place in 2021 and they weren't completed. So they were deferred to the next year. So that money had been budgeted. So it's been transferred to reserves for use in the future. And I want to, because these are consolidated statements, I want to make a note that management, when you go through the budgeting process, management uses the actual numbers of the municipality itself and not all the related boards. So the numbers that the financial numbers that you were presented during the budgeting process are accurate. These financial statements represent, the environmental services, the library, Eau Chateau, and power generation. So I want to highlight some things that are specifically relating to the boards. So the acquisition of tangible capital assets, the reserve of 2.6 million. This comes directly from Eau Chateau. Library services of 349,000. It's directly from the library board. And sick leave benefits of 168,000 comes directly from Eau Chateau. So if we were to take these out of your reserves and kind of normalize it, you would be left with the municipality itself with approximately 8.2 million in reserves, which is an increase over prior year of 6.3 million. So your financial situation or your money set aside for the future has improved this year. Any questions on the reserve before I go to the benchmarking? Yeah. I believe someone had a.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay, so the money that we've increased our reserves, and that was as a result that we didn't get to work on some of our capital projects. So the money is not lost in the sense that it's sort of earmarked for those capital projects in the next year.
Yes.
Okay.
So the money is never gone. I know when you're preparing your budget, it's not being you're not retaxing the taxpayers. Like it's been included in your budget through grants, gas tax, municipal taxes. It's being carried forward to set aside to carry forward to next year. So it's not being retaxed. That's why you see the contributions from reserves in the budget. You were going to withdraw from reserves. It's projects, like a lot of your projects are ongoing and can't for various reasons be completed in the year. So you budget to take that money back out of reserves. So the ratepayer isn't being, affected twice.
Thank you.
Before you proceed with the benchmarks, pertaining to the financial statements and the notes, on page 7, it talks about that tangible capital assets and the amortization, the breakdown. It lists like furniture, computers. I had a question. What about recreational equipment, i.e. like playgrounds? Where do they fit in? Because the lifespan of playground structures is quite a few years, but I wasn't able to identify it. And that was on page 7, section 7-1 or -I.
I'm going to tell you, I have, I don't know if Elisa will get to it before me, but we do have a working paper.
Because it does list like amortization, a number of years for land improvement, road, bridges, buildings, machinery, equipment, vehicles, water, sewer, furniture and fixtures, computer hardware, and software. But then we have a lot of outdoor recreational structures. I was wondering where that fit in. And
Our
also,
playgrounds and our fences and things like that actually all sit in land improvements.
okay. No, I was just any acquisition that have a lifespan, like I see here, computer hardware, software, 3 years and more. So is it fair to say that if we acquire tangible capital assets that have a lifespan of at least 3 years or more, that they are being amortized? Would that be a fair statement?
Again, we have a very specific policy on assets that are amortized based on dollar value of the individual asset and dollar value of the collective of assets. So, it's not simply lifespan, as I say, I've got a stapler that's 15 years old. And so there is sort of, again, council approved back in 2010, a policy that speaks to how assets are amortized and what is amortized and things like that. It's a combination of value and lifespan and replaceability.
Okay, but more specifically, if we look at beautification items like the receptacles that we're seeing in town, and other items like bicycle racks and all that, are they considered to be tangible capital assets?
They are not being amortized.
They're not?
No.
And that's because of a policy that council would have adopted back in 2010.
Yes.
So council would be able to amend that policy, either maybe not this council, but future councils.
Within reason, because the policy does have to amend to the PSAP guidelines as well.
Okay. No, I was just asking because I remember seeing tables and chairs, $1,500, and they were assets. And then seeing other items that had a bigger dollar value and they were not tangible assets. So I was asking for clarification. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And if I can just add, Madame la Mairesse, all your amortization rates are pretty much established to be similar to most municipalities. And those were given to us by the ministry. So if it's just an estimate of useful life. And you've got to remember also that, your tangible capital assets in total are pretty significant. Like you're talking about $150 million in tangible capital assets. We have to keep in mind that if there are minor expenditures, we follow your policy, whether we capitalize or not is your established policy.
Okay.
Okay, and we follow that. Okay.
No, that's good to know because I wasn't aware that we had adopted. I do not recall that policy, and quite understandable. It goes back many, many years.
And it just goes to prove that how, like accountants just love this kind of stuff, but you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, Madame la Mairesse, it is what it is.
Thank you.
Okay. You're
Yeah.
welcome. Jessica, you're up again.
All right, thank you. This is the part that I kind of get excited about. I just have a disclaimer here. So the information we've obtained from the municipality of West Nipissing is audited information. We've prepared it, and we also assist management in the preparation of the FIR. We've compared you to other municipalities. All that information that we obtain is in the public domain through the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing website. So we haven't audited those figures. We have not, provided an opinion. We haven't checked the validity of them. We've just downloaded the information from the the ministry database. So we just have that disclaimer. So what we have here is a 5-year analysis. We compare yourself.
Can I just add a comment there, Jessica?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we did not audit this information. But this information is in the FIRs of all the municipalities. And all the municipalities in the province of Ontario have to be audited. So the ministry is taking this information in directly from your financial statements. It's just a different report. So understand that that's consistent, okay? It's just we're saying we never validated the numbers that appear on that website for the ministry. Thank you.
A couple of things. The risk levels that I'm identifying here are risk levels that are set out by the ministry, and the ratios that I'm presenting are also set out by the ministry. Every year you prepare a financial information return. The data is amalgamated across the province, and they provide a report back to management with, I believe there is 8 or 9 indicators. I've chosen 5 that I think are most relevant or most interest to council. So this is how you're evaluated. The MMAH evaluates you amongst your peers. So the tax arrears ratio, this is your taxes receivable divided by your total taxes. So you were at 9.22% this year, which puts you in the low risk section. It's down from 10.22% this year, from prior year. Now, if we go to the next slide, this is how 2021 data was not available for the other municipalities. So we're using 2020 data here. You'll notice that West Nipissing is above average compared to these other municipalities. The average for a municipality in Northern Ontario of a population greater than 10,000 is 6.3%. So some ways to improve this ratio, and through discussion with management, they have reviewed their policies and procedures. They're going to work out with ratepayers payment plans, and they have a process that they go through with the intention of reducing some of these tax arrears. Now, in 2021, there was some success in collecting some of the older taxes, but I can attest that through a discussion, there is a plan to reduce these tax arrears. You are, however, still low risk. Go to the next one, total reserves ratio. This is your reserve balance as a percentage of total operating expenses. So this indicates how much funds are set aside for future needs. So it's been increasing since it was stable in 2017. It's been increasing since then, which is positive, and now you're in a low risk area. I sometimes get the question, what's the right level of reserves? And although the ministry benchmark is 20%, it really depends to each municipality, the needs of the local municipality and your reserve fund policy. Now, if we go to the next, so you'll note in 2020 you were moderate risk. You've improved your reserve levels, so now you're low risk in 2021. The average for Northern Ontario is 37.2. Again, you are a little lower, but that you have to more look at your internal policies to see what the right level is for you, not necessarily, it's good to compare ourselves to others, but you always gotta do what's right for you. The debt servicing trend. So this is, you'll notice it's fairly stable, 2020 to 2021. This is your total debt payments, so your capital and your interest divided by your total revenues. Now, I want to note that this appears to be quite high. You're in a moderate risk range, but this includes power generation, who has, that organization has invested a lot into their capital assets, and they did take on some debt to do that. So if we go to the next page, that's why you'll note that you're quite a bit higher than the peers. The Northern Ontario average is 3.5%. Just I want to tell you an internal struggle I had was, should I exclude or strip out power generation from your numbers? But through discussions with the MMAH, they want your financial information returned to match your financial statements. So I feel it's prudent to give you information that the MMAH is receiving. So you'll note that's why, but that is why your ratio is a little higher than.
On that note, if I may, it would have been nice to have a color coding on the actual debt, which is revenue neutral. Like, meaning, for example, we have a debt level, according to that chart, but in that debt, how much money or how many revenues are provided back to the municipality to offset that debt?
Yes,
It would have only been a piece of additional information. It would have been a visual image.
I'm just going to make a note for future reference.
The other point I'd like to make on that is, don't forget, power gen is a different type of enterprise. It's profit oriented, and you incurred the debt, but at the end of the day, it's generating income.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different. You know what I mean? Because you're actually selling They're selling power.
Yeah.
So, you made a decision to go ahead with this debt for this infrastructure, knowing full well that it's gonna be attached to a revenue stream that is quite important.
Yeah.
So I think we have to keep that in the back of our minds when we're looking at this.
And I
Does that
totally,
make sense?
yes, it does. And that's why I was saying the color coding on that bar scale
To separate.
would be great for people who are not on council and not listening to this meeting, not to assume that our debt ratio is so high that it's a concern. On the flip side, there's money coming in from that debt based on, i.e., the example that you gave, Dan.
Absolutely. You're right.
And I did
Okay.
struggle with this but at the end, I decided, since that's how MMAH was evaluating you, but I totally agree with your comment. It looks, on the surface, if you're just looking at this number without the context, it does look somewhat misleading. I believe the next slide is the asset consumption ratio. So here, your asset consumption ratio is the accumulated amortization divided by the total cost. You're low risk, and I have to say it's been fairly stable over the past 5 years. So what this means is you're adding to your capital assets at the same rate as that you're using them. Now, I wanna caution that these are paper numbers. These are accounting values. This doesn't reflect the state of your infrastructure. So I encourage you, I know that there's asset management plans that are coming into place. I encourage you to utilize your asset management plans as a guide for your future capital needs. But in this regard, you're doing very well. If we look at the next page, you are well below the provincial average for the north is 52.4%. You're well below that average, and you're low risk. What this tells me is that you're constantly renewing you're constantly investing in your capital infrastructure. The next page is the operating surplus ratio. So what this is the annual surplus divided by own source revenues. So we take your annual surplus and we strip out all the grants. And this shows your ability to pay for your operational costs, and also, is there any funds left over to repay your debt or increase your reserve levels? Anything above -1% is considered low risk, so you're well above the low risk level. And on the next slide, you'll see your comparative for 2020. You're just below 9%. The average was 13.14% last year. And that's it for my presentation. I do want to take this opportunity to thank Elisa and her team. It truly is a team effort to bring these financial statements to you today. So I want to thank management and all the personnel that assisted throughout the audit. It was a pleasure working with you. And we do welcome any feedback. I always seek to improve how we can make this more value added, and help in understanding the financial statements.
Are there any questions from members of council?
I have full number right now.
If there's no objection, accounts payable, page 11 with the province of Ontario. I know that on our books, we have a debt that we inherited at amalgamation regarding the museum. And that debt has been slowly decreasing. It goes according to number of guests or participation. It's been so long that we have it in our books as a carryover. Is there going to be a light at the end of the tunnel other than paying off this debt? You would think that the government would just write off the debt.
Well,
It's on page.
Madam Namiades, we've been dealing with this for a long time.
I know.
I think this is a municipal issue.
Okay.
the way that debt is being brought down is the net revenues being generated. Well, at the end of the day, they were supposed to forgive this a long time ago, and I believe management has tried, and and hopefully it'll come to a resolution in the near future, because we've been dealing with this for quite a while, and we have a special report that we have to issue to NOHFC on it. That is pretty minor. Okay, so we'd like to see it off the books too, to Madame la Mairesse.
Okay. And when we had the slide for accrued interest, not accrued interest, but it was accrued taxes, unpaid taxes, I believe, the second slide. Can we anticipate that we'll be in a better position next year due to the tax sales that occurred last year, and that the tax arrear properties basically all were sold like hotcakes?
I think the only answer I have for you is that wait for the beautiful presentation we're going to have next year, Madame la Mairesse.
Okay.
Because we're unfortunately, as auditors, we look at historical information, not real-time information. So we'll be more than pleased to report on that next year.
Okay.
Management, we do discuss this with management, and they do have processes in place to, I know you collected on one large account this year was resolved. I know management does have processes and a plan in place to try and collect. I mean, you are limit, like there are, as you know, rules for when you can go, what steps you have to take before you can go for tax sale or try to collect on those arrears. But
okay,
Lisa may be able to elaborate on that.
no problem. I don't see any other questions, so we probably do have a resolution that we need to adopt to say that the financial statements, the audited financial statements have been received, and that these will be accessible and available on our municipal website. Is there a mover and a seconder? Conseiller Chris, Conseiller Alice.
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Lee Senecal. Be it resolved that the mayor and the chair of general government be authorized to sign the 2021 audited financial report on behalf of the West Nipissing municipality.
Any objections? Aucune objection? None? Carried. Adopted. I want to thank you, Dan, and thank you, Jess, for the presentation and all the information that you have provided and your patience with us. It's always a pleasure.
Well, thank you very much, Madame la Mairesse, and thank you to all the councillors. You know what I mean? It's a pleasure presenting to you, and thanks for inviting us. The only thing I'm a little bit disappointed is Norm Rebelge didn't ask me any questions. Norm, you usually have questions for me to keep me on my toes, but I think it's either we explained it really well, Norm.
Yeah, your process of explanation has greatly improved over the years.
Well, there you go. Thank you very much, Monsieur Rebelge. And I didn't mean to single you out there, Monsieur, but it's always your questions are always welcome and very well thought out, like everybody else's questions tonight. So without further ado, I'd like to repeat what Jessica said and thank Alyssa and the rest of the team at the municipality for the assistance they gave us through the audit. It's always like a pleasure. And what was really nice for me is I was able to actually visit the municipality and chat with people, because I've been used to doing that over the years and I miss it. So hopefully we'll be able to do more of that in the future. Thank you very much. And thank you to council for giving us the mandate. I appreciate
Indeed. Thank you.
it. All right.
Okay.
So can we beg our leave now, or can we?
You have the prerogative that if you wish to leave or if you want to stay in the waiting room and watch the remaining of the meeting, or either go and enjoy the remaining of the evening.
Well, I'm glad you offered that, but considering for Jessica and I, this is our second council meeting presenting financial statements today. So I think we'll beg our leave, if that's okay, guys. All right?
Oh, good night.
Always a pleasure. And any questions, please reach out. And thank you.
Thank you. We move on to the second delegation. We have Caitlin Dobratz with the North Bay Parry Sound District Health Unit. And council members were provided a full-fledged copy of the actual delegation presentation, but I'll pass it on to Caitlin, and company is
Hi, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. I do just have a short presentation. I am conscious of time and that I have a almost 3-year-old toddler getting ready for bed. So if you hear any craziness in the background, I apologize. That is likely him. So I will be as quick as absolutely possible. So thank you again for having me this evening. My name is Caitlin Dobratz, and my pronouns are she and her, and I'm a community health promoter at the North Bay Parry Sound District Health Unit. So I've been working in my role with the health unit for just a few months now. Started in a contract position in April, but I have been doing a lot of similar work prior to this position for the last 7 years at the AIDS Committee in North Bay. So doing a lot of harm reduction work around Safe Sharps handling and disposal, naloxone anti-stigma education, and sort of working in our Hep C program at the AIDS Committee. So definitely a lot of experience in sort of having some of these conversations. I was asked to speak this evening in regards to sort of enhancing Safe Sharps handling and disposal services in the West Nipissing area. So your community has been such an amazing pleasure to work with in terms of implementing Sharps disposal services and sort of recognizing that there were ways to sort of improve services in the area. So this application this evening, or this presentation, is really just sort of geared to sort of enhancing some of that work even further. So Lynn graciously offered to sort of sit in just in sort of a listening capacity for the presentation, but then if folks have questions from a local context, Lynn is sort of the expert that I've been sort of chatting with in addition to the mayor to kind of think about what these services could look like.
Yes,
and my manager, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, my name is Lynn Perroux. I am the West Nipissing General Hospital's Alliance Center Program Manager. The Alliance Center is the local substance abuse and mental health services clinic in the community. I've been with the hospital for the better part of 20 years and will be glad to answer any questions if you have any later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynn. I really appreciate you being here. And my manager, Chris Bowes, is also on the call as well this evening, more as a supporting role as well. But again, if folks have sort of any specific questions geared at more a managerial level, Chris is happy to sort of answer those questions. So I'm not going to go into a ton of information around, harm reduction, needle syringe programs. I know the council might be familiar because there has been some presentations in the past as we were working to get other Sharps disposal units sort of installed in community. But I do just sort of want to re-emphasize that we are working from a harm reduction lens when we have these conversations around Sharps disposal in community, and sort of recognizing that it is a philosophy that works to help support people with substance use related issues and concerns. Harm reduction works to reduce the adverse social, health and economic consequences associated with substance use. And again, really works to meet people where they're at. So it's evidence-based, non-judgmental, non-coercive, and client-centered. With harm reduction, meeting people where they're at really sort of recognizes that, abstinence is certainly an aspect of harm reduction. Many folks really work from an abstinence-based framework, and that works for them. But it's also sort of recognizing that abstinence is not always the end goal for everybody. So having, sharps related resources, having a needle syringe program, having resources for people to kind of meet them where they're at any point in their journey is really important. In terms of needle syringe programs, so again, these are services that are available locally. So the Alliance Center does, please correct me if I'm wrong, Lynn, operates a needle syringe program. So they are free to the public. They offer comprehensive ranges of services that really are geared towards being as non-judgmental as possible. They provide new substance use equipment for people who are actively using substances. They do provide the safe disposal option for sharps, provides naloxone kits, which works to temporarily reverse the effects of an opioid overdose. They provide education, referrals to various services, vaccinations, treatments, and a whole variety of other services. And I often sort of get met with, sort of your typical stereotypical sort of assumption that people who use drugs are very irresponsible and they don't care about themselves or their health. We know that that's really quite the opposite. People who are coming in to access substance use equipment really do care, about their health, their safety, their well-being, works to prevent the transmission of communicable diseases such as HIV and hepatitis C. And we do really know that people will sort of use substances regardless and in a much unsafer way if these programs did not exist. And they're really a gateway to building trust with very marginalized, stigmatized, vulnerable populations. So it might sort of start as somebody coming in to access, a sharps container or needle syringe program supplies, but then that might also turn into, them building relationships and trust, and then maybe seeking other things like healthcare or counseling services or those referrals to maybe a treatment program. So it really is a really nice gateway into building relationships with people who are very, very used to being highly stigmatized in our communities. And again, harm reduction, needle syringe programs, not a free-for-all. There's definitely a lot of ongoing evaluations that go into these programs, definitely ongoing conversations, ways to improve services. And we really do sort of work to incorporate all of this feedback into the services that we offer. So I won't sort of continue to get into the importance of needle syringe programs because I did very quick high level sort of summary of those options. But another great aspect is the disposal options too. So people coming in to access needle syringe programs can also dispose of sharps. So that's sort of helping to eliminate finding syringes in community on the streets or in other places where people might be using. And again, when I say a sharp, so it could be a variety of different things from needles to syringes to lancets, scalpel blades, and also things like glass pipes, glass stems, razor blades, and other materials with sharp edges. And sharps in the community can come from a variety of different means. So people who use needles for medical conditions, people who use needles or other equipment for substance use, medical procedures. I think the one we sort of think of first, because that is sort of, again, kind of plays into a little bit of that stigma sometimes, is that it's automatically people who use drugs. And maybe it is, or maybe it isn't, but kind of, providing these services for people kind of no matter what they're sort of using. And so part of the portfolio that I work in at the health unit is, so I'm a community health promoter in the Healthy Living program, but with a focus on enhanced harm reduction. So that is sort of where my experience at the AIDS committee is kind of an asset in doing this work. So part of enhanced harm reduction focuses on things like naloxone, but the sharps handling and disposal is definitely a big part of my portfolio currently in working with communities to make sure they have everything they need, from education to disposal options, supplies, and just sort of an ongoing sort of partnership to kind of meet communities where they're at. So if there's needs that are being sort of identified, then I can sort of work within my capacity as a community health promoter to help build that capacity for other communities. And so we know that having a place to properly dispose of sharps helps reduce the possibility of sharps in community, works to help keep our environment safer and cleaner, reduces the possibility of sharps related injuries, and helps keep sharps away from children and just our community more broadly. And the equipment we need typically for safe sharps handling and disposal, it's pretty straight to the point. You can have puncture proof or disposable gloves, tongs or forceps, and a hard-sided container with a lid. So certainly if that's a sharps container, that's great. If it's something like a pop bottle or a laundry detergent bottle, anything that is sort of considered that hard-sided container, where a syringe cannot poke through, is suitable for disposal. Excuse me. And again, we encourage folks not to throw sharps in the trash, down the toilet, in a recycling bin, and encouraging folks to keep them out of the reach of children and community more broadly. So where you can discard of sharps, so there was an environmental scan done sort of prior to me coming into this position that really worked to connect local areas. So if we were looking at West Nipissing, we were talking to pharmacies and places locally where people could bring sharps containers back, because then we could sort of provide that education. So that's, you know, you can discard at pharmacies in wall-mounted lockable biohazard containers, needle syringe programs like the West Nipissing General Hospital or the Alliance Center, hazardous waste depots, and community sharps bins. And we have sort of made those local connections as well, like I said. So if folks are really wanting that local connection and to know where to go, then at least we can sort of say with confidence where these things can be discarded, because we've had conversations with local pharmacies and other community partners. So again, just some visuals, some different, things that are available through the health unit, the disposal of the single sharps. These are the wall-mounted lockable biohazard containers. As I said, wall-mounted, lockable. These are the ones that you would typically see in public washrooms. So these are a great sort of a disposal option for indoors. The community sharps bin is another thing that West Nipissing has been such a champion in. So this did get approved to be installed locally. I really wish that, it was as easy everywhere. And so it's been really wonderful. I was not involved in the installation of this bin. This was before my time, but I've heard a lot of really positive things about how it was really easy to work with your community. But we know these help promote health equity. They provide that 24/7 drop-off option, and they do operate year-round. So it's outside, people can discard kind of discreetly after hours. They don't have to walk inside an organization where they might feel stigmatized. They're tamper-proof, they're child-proof. They're not an easy thing to sort of get inside. And it definitely helps reduce substance use-related stigma in communities. So here is the installation of your bin that took place, and again available at the corner of Queen Street and Main Street, close to Michaud and Levesque's Ace Hardware. So it is really great to see a local bin installed, and I've been hearing really wonderful things, and the fact that it is really well utilized. So that really sort of speaks volumes in being able to bridge a gap in service for your local community. And so what sort of brings me to council tonight was sort of a conversation through my portfolio. I've been sort of brainstorming and thinking of communities where we can sort of install additional sharps containers, and sort of recognizing, that one bin is great. It's starting to get a lot of traffic, but we often know that people won't necessarily travel in between locations if it's really far from where they are. So that started me kind of thinking about, kind of what else we could do to continue to sort of bridge gaps in services. That's where these needle box sort of came into play, because these can actually be installed outdoors. So I had approached Lynn and your mayor, Joanne, to have conversations about whether or not this would be a feasible option for West Nipissing. Are there locations where people might be using and discarding of syringes in an unsafe way? That sort of led to a conversation of different locations in West Nipissing and maybe branching in some of the outlining communities that fall within West Nipissing. So our commitment as the health unit is being able to provide the one-time cost for the Sharps containers. So you can see a link here at the bottom. So you can sort of look into them. And it is $185.50 to cover the cost of one. And the idea is to sort of work with community partners. So Lynn was sort of the easy sort of first go-to to kind of start thinking about this, to kind of lay out the logistics of who would be responsible for sort of checking them, emptying them, replacing the inserts, and kind of working collaboratively to provide these as an option. The health unit could provide the cost of the bin, provide the education, look at disposal options, and kind of work out all of those logistical pieces. So that is sort of kind of the pitch, and to see what council thinks in terms of interest, if it could be of a value. And those initial conversations, as I said, have already taken place with our mayor and Lynn from the Alliance Center. There were a few locations that were potentially identified, and again, in the outlining communities as well. And again, those logistical pieces, which is where I sort of come in as a community health promoter to sort of, establish a local connection. Again, it was sort of easy with Lynn and then our mayor, and then kind of look at those ongoing costs and price things out, and see what the feasibility is. And definitely looking to have an MOU signed, so it's really clearly laid out with logistics, who will be sort of taking care of what, and getting better prices of the ongoing cost of the inserts, and really just sort of piloting it to see what it could look like, how much traffic it's going to get, how much it's going to cost to empty, etc. From a disposable option, because you already have a community Sharps container or the mailbox type outside, it might just be as easy as disposing into those into the larger container, since that disposal is already taken care of. So that is my very quick rundown. I'm very easy to get in touch with. I'm open to any comments or questions that you might have for myself or my manager or Lynn, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Caitlin. That very informative. Just as an add-on, it does align with the community safety and well-being plan that the municipality adopted. And I know that in the past, while we discussed the Sharp containers like the mailbox model, there was also at the time comments pertaining to what about the outlying areas and other areas within the community. So what's being sought this evening is, if council agrees in moving forward with this initiative, that there'd be our staff that would be able to work along with the health unit, the South Alliance, and other members, and see what opportunities could be explored if we want these wall-mounted outdoor boxes, and also what the cost is involved for the insert. But I think the key to the success is also the partnership to empty these inserts. But there's opportunities to look at the emptying of the inserts to go in the large mailbox that's in town. So I'll open the floor for questions and comments to see if there's any comments or questions from members of council. No?
Well, I do.
Alice?
Well, just one question. Do we have stats available to see, because I do agree that it's a great initiative. I think it's part of the the plan that we had put together, emergency plan. And I do also agree that each municipality should have access to one box. I think it would be great to see that. And there's specific place where it could be put. Obviously, there's the cost one question is the cost would be, are we allowed one boxes, or do we have to pay for the rest, or every boxes is paid for? That's the first question that I have. So you're saying yes or no?
So Caitlin, if we need 5 of these units or 10 of these units, will the unit cost be covered by the health unit?
Yeah, I think that definitely comes down to a question of budget. I'm grateful that my manager is on the call. So Chris, I don't know if you sort of want to provide, I think the expectation is that we could get started with, I know we had discussed maybe 5 or 6 based on kind of budget, and certainly that kind of changes from year to year to get communities going. But certainly, Chris, if you have anything to add, definitely feel free.
Yeah, sure, Caitlin. Yeah, this is one of the things I think where we can talk about the quantity and things like that a little bit more in details as the plan goes on. But definitely, the idea is to provide multiple bins if needed and if felt necessary in the community. So that's something we'd definitely be interested in discussing.
Okay. Thank you.
May I and further to that, if I look at the picture, I don't think it would be installed in a wall and not just in the base, cement base, or just installed to like a building, for example.
Yeah, so the ones we've done in other areas, they're installed on sometimes exterior walls, and sometimes they're put into public washrooms or areas like that. And one of the great things about these bins is the tamper-proof build of them as well. So they're pretty secure to have in areas, and they can be done outdoors or indoors.
Okay, no, I mean, you have to look, obviously, to pick up those other things that need to be looked at it, but it's a great project, and I will definitely, anyways, to start looking at it and support to have, to increase safety and rest of the thing. And like you said, it's not just, everybody can use it. It's well used and it's well needed. And, I mean, there's a need. It's clear. Like we cannot play that bird that put their head in the sand. It's an issue. It's a major issue. I think across Canada and the world, because I mean it's. I don't want to go into that. It's going to be too long. But I do thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you very much for working very hard on prevention. I think because education is keys and those. Issue, and to have people supported it and not look at it like, oh my God, like again, like we're paying for people that doing drugs and I mean, they don't want to help themselves and blah, blah, blah. So education is a key, and I really, really support and appreciate the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't know if it's a proper suggestion, but I think it's a very good program. I appreciate the presentation. Would it be proper for the council representative for the different outlying communities find a possible location, report at the next council meeting, and then staff could do and confirm it? But right now, there's a lot of work to be done, like with the election and all that. So I know staff are real busy. And if we want the program to go ahead, maybe some of us should take a bit of initiative, bring some places that show an interest to supply a spot on their wall or what, and bring it back here. And then the staff could go and do that.
Okay.
I don't know. It's just a suggestion.
Well, it's a great suggestion, and I think between the health unit and the wisdom thing, there's something else in Nipissing West are also very knowledgeable, mostly into something else of maybe some areas that are really critical and that require this, and with the feedback of members of council. But I think if we give direction that we endorse the project, that we would like the health unit with the South Alliance and the municipality to work together and feedback from members of council. At least we're progressing and moving forward to be able to look at the mounting of these units. Jose, Chris?
Yeah, I think actually, I think Councillor Lee's mentioned it, but I would like to see some stats, and given the size of these boxes, I assume that they have to be checked on a more regular basis than the large box. And I remember that I think we contract out that service, so the cost on that would be, I'd like to know that before moving forward. And then the other thing, you know, we could consider putting them in the libraries. So thank you.
I'll see Denny. And I see that we have our Director of Corporate Services also with the hand up.
You're mute.
I'll see Denny, you are mute. You're still on mute. Okay, we can see you smile, but we can't hear you. Okay, so you know what I'm going to do, Jose Denny, in the interim, figure out the sound, and I'm going to ask our Director of Corporate Services to provide us with an update.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, I just wanted to kind of remind council that this is a delegation. And so the conversation and the questions should be directed towards those that are presenting. It will come back as an agenda item at a future meeting for council to actually have the discussion about, do they support, where it is, all that kind of stuff, and just to not go too far down that at this point, that this is just a delegation, and to direct, you know, the questions for clarification on the presentation.
I think the only thing that's being asked right now is if there's an appetite to explore this, and if there is, at least it gives direction to staff. And then when it's brought back to council, we're going to have a more detailed information for council to consider. That sound fair?
Again, that's not how we handle delegations.
Okay, well, there's no problem, but we do have only one meeting this summer, and if we want to have a kickoff with this project, I think it's a council decision.
We get in, correct?
Conseil Denis?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I'm unmuted now.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I'm just wondering, Caitlin, who would, is there somebody that would make some sort of survey of where it's most needed in West Nipissing? Or who would that entitle, who would do that for us? Or is, you know, we need to know which specific areas of West Nipissing it is most needed, I would assume. So is there some sort of survey being done, or?
Yeah, I mean, not at this time. Sort of the value in kind of building partnership is really sort of working with our local community to sort of help determine that. So I guess it would really depend on what the community would like to see. So if you'd like to see sort of a more formal survey done, like I definitely think that's something we could explore to kind of really pinpoint it, or if it's done sort of more organically, so through partnerships with local community members to then kind of reach out to other like the other outlining communities to kind of see, like I'm open to sort of either or. We haven't done a whole lot with the small boxes yet, so it's we don't really have, like, each community is so different, so I think we're sort of kind of just looking to community to kind of help determine some of those next steps, should it be something that we want to explore.
Just to piggyback on your comment, Caitlin, when the Sharps disposal unit was installed near Michaud Levesque, there was a formal survey conducted with members of the community as well as individuals who do utilize substances. And that was the most appropriate spot for a unit of that size. That being said, we still have information with respect to where a smaller unit could be installed and beneficial. Colloquially, areas such as the public beach, as well as the splash pad that's not far from the Twigs restaurant just off of Main Street, have been identified on several occasions as possible spots where an additional disposal unit would be beneficial to maintaining the community safety. That being said, here at the Alliance Center, as Caitlin mentioned in her presentation, we run a needle syringe program here. So we have a lot of individuals that visit our clinic that we could absolutely conduct a survey as people come in. And I mean, really, at the end of the day, they're the individuals who have the best information for us when it comes to places where they might utilize substances or what might be a little more appropriate than not. So that's definitely something that we're willing to do as well, should council wish to move forward with our project.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of. That sounds good. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So,
Well, I'm having concern right now that because it's so late in our term, that I need to put something down to make sure that next council will take over. If I don't think there will be much done till the end of this term. But I mean, we could have something in place to make sure that they look at it and the discussion, because I don't think we should, even if we have a discussion next week, we're not going to be making it well. Some of us will.
I mean, at the end of the day, our term, we still have time, and the idea was to be proactive and get this done sooner than later.
I agree, but there's a lot of things that need to be
I
done.
think we received the information. I haven't heard any objection, but I heard that there's also an appetite for additional information. And that additional information should be provided to our staff pertaining to cost, pertaining to hotspot locations, pertaining to opportunities for partnership and
Statistic.
sorry?
Well, we asked that was what
Statistics, like,
Yeah.
okay, if that could be shared with our staff, so council can receive this information and move forward with this initiative. And if there's any members of council that do have additional information or concern, they can share it to staff as well. So we can have it in the near future on our next agenda, which would be first Tuesday of September. Are we okay with that?
Yeah, so just to clarify, who would I be sending the information to? Like once it's all collected?
I'll let our Director of Corporate Services provide that information.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks. If you can send it to me, and I'll send you an email after the meeting so you've got my contact. Because our bylaw officers keep an eye on things and they report to me, and that'll be the easiest then.
Okay, so ahead of September, then we can, Lynn, maybe you and I could connect, and then we could sort of work to put something together. I also see your hand is up, so yeah, please feel free to jump in.
Lynn, you're on mute.
Yeah.
My apologies. It's only been 2.5 years we're working with Zoom. I just have a quick question for council. When we discuss statistics, we absolutely have information we can share. I'm just curious as to what statistics you'd like to see. What types of numbers or what information do you feel would be most important to you?
I would like to know the number of needle every year that in the last couple of years that you had picked up in the boxes that we have right now. And number of people that maybe organizations that I'd reach out to you guys to say they will have to have, because that box, if you go to Sudbury or North Bay, there's, you see them in a lot of places, especially bathroom, which is a great place to have it. It's I mean, I don't know if you have that, Lynn, if it's possible, but anything that you, because I think we have to prove, especially if there's an amount of money that council need to contribute. I mean, which mean the resident of West Nipissing, if it's something that we're just throwing away for nothing because we want to do it, or if it's needed. I think it's always one of the reasons that we're doing something. So is that okay? Do you think it makes sense? It's too much to ask, or?
No, it absolutely makes sense. Thank you. It just clarifies what information that you're looking for as council. So what I can produce is I can let you know what the returns look like here with our Sharps unit. I can let you know how many individuals visit the needle syringe program. I can let you know, information that way. And I'm sure Caitlin might have some more distinctive information with respect to numbers of.
Okay,
And Madam Mayor, if I may ask, maybe, because I know that Councillor Fisher had identified that he would like to do
the cost,
yeah, so maybe if Councillor around the table have question, it can be directed to, I don't know, to someone that would
Well,
be asking.
if we have any specific questions or feedback, or what we should do is convey it to our Director of Corporate Services, who will be the contact person. And then this way can obtain the information on behalf of council. So this way communications can be streamlined. Okay, so I think it's a great starting point. Thank you so much to both of you for being here this evening and sharing this information. And looking forward to the progress of how this project will unfold.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
Thanks.
We really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you.
Now, on our agenda, we have to proceed in closed meeting.
Can we take a break before it's 8 o'clock?
Okay, you need to propose a
Can
motion.
I propose, yeah, I know, but usually I say it and it said propose. I propose a motion and we go to a break right now.
Okay,
And I think
so.
it would be supported by Councillor Fisher.
So there's a motion for a recess. The recess is proposed, what, 10, 15 minutes?
15 minutes.
15-minute recess by Councillor Alice Senecal, seconded by Councillor Chris Fisher. You're on mute, Melanie.
Sorry about that. It was moved by Councillor Lee Senecal and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Approximately 8:12 p.m. A motion was tabled for a 15-minute recess.
Any objection? None, carried, adopted. 15 minutes for 8:26.
Yeah. Oh my God. Another time I had a thing. Bye. God, am I doing that on purpose? I'm not sweating anymore. Oh. Is it lovely one? Yeah, it
That's
is.
still nice.
Wow, Steve, oh. Ah.
Allez là. On passe à côté, I just want to go. I'll go get some water.
Just before we get back into the meeting, as we're 8:30 already. And yeah, so in the new
Qu'est-ce
business,
qu'ils
the
disent,
first 3 resolutions, unless there's some of those noise resolutions, residential that are time sensitive, we'd like to get them done. So I don't know if we put.
On devrait trouver ce qui est important.
Ben, c'est ça qu'on devrait faire, oui, après qu'on vienne Canberra, parce que, comme je te dis, ça passe à chier que, moi, ça nous apprend 6 sur Québec d'aller le voir, mais. Ils ont eu les FBI, ils recherchent la maison. Mais là, je
Non, nous autres, ils nous entendent.
ça, ici. C'est quoi comme ça? C'est différent. I thought it was trailer park, it's different.
C'est mieux que Lise.
Mais là, c'est.
Vous n'êtes pas sur mute.
Ben oui, mais on ne peut pas aller sur le mute, vous autres, vous pouvez l'utiliser.
Non, on vous entend. OK.
Ouais. Pas rien dit de mal.
Okay, we are 8:26. Under 12, we need the clerk. We'll wait for the clerk. I see your hand up, Councilor Chris. I'm just going to wait until we get back into the meeting. Okay, so I see that we have the clerk. Councilor Chris, did you have a question? Can we proceed with the agenda?
Yeah, just maybe a suggestion, a question. So it looks to me like this, the agenda is still quite large. I'm going to struggle to get through it. I can see a bunch of things that are time sensitive that, and perhaps just wonder if you might want to rejig some things.
Well, as we move forward, I'll make the suggestion. I just had the discussion with the Director of Corporate Services because I know that we're going to be pressed with time. Okay? So proceeding closed meeting, we have 2 agenda items. We have the Cache Bay Trailer Park and we have the lease renewal for Twist Restaurant. Is there a mover and a seconder? Councilor Norm, Councilor Elise.
It is moved by Councilor LaBerge and seconded by Councilor Lee Senecal. Pursuant to Section 239 of the Municipal Act, be it resolved that we proceed into closed meeting to discuss the following: the security of the property of the municipality or local board, personal matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal or local board employees, regarding the Cache Bay Trailer Park and the renewal of the Twiggs restaurant lease.
Any objections? Open objection? None. Carried. Deputy.
Just give me a minute to close the live stream.